Welcome, everybody, to another edition of BadgerBlitz TV. I'm Jay Kokorowski, senior writer at BadgerBlitz.com, part of the Rivals Network, covering all things Wisconsin athletics. And thank you all for joining us. Another edition of our revamped YouTube shows, part of a broader offering here at BadgerBlitz.com. And a lot to get to today. Obviously, Wisconsin heads to Purdue this Saturday, a 2 p.m. Central Time kickoff on BTN in West Lafayette, Indiana, and a lot to get to with matchups. We're going to talk about a couple players in general for Purdue to watch out for, along with some player interviews about those two players for some Badgers, but also injury reports, preliminary status report, I guess the official word you could call that, and whatnot to come in. But the big news we wanted to get to first and foremost was the news on Monday afternoon, broken by multiple outlets, including Rivals, was the news of Devin Chandler, wide receiver, redshirt or second-year player, entering the transfer portal. A UW official confirmed to BadgerBlitz.com that he indeed entered the transfer portal, as first reported by 24/7 Sports, Rivals, and The Athletic. Chandler came to Wisconsin as a two-star recruit per Rivals in the 2020 class, held offers from Illinois, Maryland, NC State, Virginia. He showed flashes in 2020, had a 59-yard kickoff return, an 18-yard run versus Wake Forest in the Duke's Mayo Bowl last December. Overall, last season, 2 catches for 28 yards. And in spring, we thought there was a big jump where he was making some plays, some contested catches, showcasing the ability to separate a bit too. And so BadgerBlitz.com listed him along with Chimere Dike and AJ Abbott as kind of some of the breakout players at the wide receiver, at the very least, in terms of what they provided, what they showed in the practices that were open to media. There were about 5 of them in April. However, that didn't necessarily translate this season. He had 0 catches in 2021. He played only 11 snaps on offense, according to Pro Football Focus. So that potential depth at the wide receiver spot never was really shown. He never broke the too deep on the team's depth chart, where you have Danny Davis and Kendrick Pryor and DK, and then also a 60-year wide receiver in Jack Dunn holding those spots and receiving the most of those reps as well. And then he did carve out a role on this team. That was on kickoff return. However, he only had 4 kickoff returns. That impact was minimal due to a lot of touchbacks or just not being able to return the ball. And when he did, wasn't necessarily a lot of success for that on Chris Herring's kickoff return unit. So, for those that have not seen too, Jesse Temple has a in-depth Q&A at The Athletic talking about that as well, talking about his decision to leave Wisconsin and whatnot. I guess a lot of things going on with this too is talking about, what this means for Wisconsin, right? And I think that's one thing that needs to be discussed in terms of, first off, maybe I forgot a third part in this too, but let's talk about the 2 of them that I have listed. Wide receiver depth, when it comes to right now, not necessarily this year, but what about next year, right? You have right now Danny Davis, Kendrick Pryor, Jack Dunn, really having that, I would say, they're departing. You're going to have Chimere Dike. You'll have AJ Abbott. But then, Chandler may have had chances, next year to contribute more. But now that may go to someone like Marcus Allen. That may go someone like Skylar Bell, who are right now true freshmen. And there is, within the group, Alvis Whitted's group, there will be chances to contribute next year for sure. And within that too, Ken Stephon Bracey, a redshirt sophomore right now. Right now he has not played this year at all. Has not suited up. Can be used also as a kickoff returner, punt returner when he is healthy. Besides being a wide receiver, when he does get healthy, can he contribute in the depth heading up for next year in Alvis Whitted's room? So, and for that matter too, Wisconsin's got 2 commits for the 2022 class at wide receiver in Vinny Anthony and Tommy McIntosh too. So we'll see just, I guess, Chandler's impact, especially with what he showed in spring camp brought some potential, and we saw it last year, the flashes, but that will be something, again, to watch coming up, and just how Wisconsin reloads in that wide receiver group going forward. The more pressing thing is matter, I guess, for Wisconsin, who's the kickoff returner now going forward. On the depth chart right now, Faion Hicks is the kickoff, the number 2 kickoff returner. He's one of the starting cornerbacks. Obviously, being a corner, one of the starting corners, he also works the nickel. So we'll see if he is slotted into there, and I guess we'll see going forward on Saturday against Purdue who takes over that, and especially again Bracey when he is healthy. Just when can he can he jump back in and make an impact on kickoff returns as well? So more to come if we hear anything more. We did reach out to Chandler. Badger Blitz did on Monday, and to see if he's willing to talk about his decision to leave. So stay tuned more from BadgerBlitz.com and BadgerBlitz TV about more if it comes to that, if we have more information. So Wisconsin, again now down a wide receiver and a special teams player in Chandler. Look ahead to Purdue. Obviously, Wisconsin has not lost since the 2003 season. We all remember the 2004 fumble return for a touchdown by cornerback Scott Starks, a vivid memory in many in Wisconsin faithful and whatnot off of a Kyle Orton fumble. Let's get into some of the preliminary status report, where we have some injuries to talk about or players that are questionable at the moment. Taking a look at who is questionable. There's 4 as of Monday. That was, was released by Wisconsin. Offensive lineman Logan Bruss, who is the starting right tackle. Tight end Clay Cundiff, who has made some plays in the passing game in terms of receiving ball. He's got 3 catches, but they've all gone for bigger gains this year. Inside linebacker Mike Mascalunas, a key reserve, a core special teams player, and then also outside linebacker Spencer Lytle. All 4 did not play on Saturday against Army, and it'll be interesting to see. We received the pregame status reports on Saturday, right before, a little bit before kickoff. So we'll see what their status is. I will obviously have to talk to Paul Christ on Thursday during his weekly availability, as well as to their statuses and just their progression throughout the week to see if they will in fact play on Saturday, or if they'll be held out. So who is out though? Tight end Jack Eschenbach, who was the number 2 tight end on the depth chart. You have also inside linebacker Jordan Turner, and then outside linebacker Aaron Witt. So that's the preliminary status report for Purdue week. Again, we'll get the pregame status report coming up on Saturday before kickoff as to say who's in, who's out against the Boilermakers. So going back again, Purdue comes in 4-2 overall, 2-1 in the Big Ten. Within this, Purdue comes off a huge 24-7 win over number 2 Iowa. Iowa's now number 11 in the AP poll on Saturday. It allowed Wisconsin to, I don't necessarily like the words or the phrase controlling their own destiny, but now they hold their cards, and they have the ability to make this a division winning year despite the adversity early on in 2021. But there are a couple players that we talked to players and coaches about, head coach Paul Christ and defensive coordinator Jim Leonard about on Monday. That's wide receiver David Bell and defensive end George Karlaftis. And let's talk about David Bell first. And, Bell, dynamic wide receiver. Wisconsin's faced a bunch of wide receivers so far that have been pretty good this year in 2021. Obviously, Penn State's Jahan Dotson comes to mind immediately. But then also Wisconsin faced some good wide receivers at Notre Dame, from Michigan as well. So this is going to be a secondary that has played, I would say, solid throughout most of this season, if not more than solid. But they have been prone to give up some big plays. You saw that against Purdue, Notre Dame to an extent, and then against Michigan and even Army. Against the Black Knights of Army, Wisconsin gave up, it was 2 plays of 35 yards or more against Jeff Bonkin's program last weekend. So it will be interesting to see what happens against against Purdue. And for that matter, there are 4 players for the Boilermakers that have caught 20 or more passes. It's a pass-happy scheme, folks. We're going to dive more into this on Thursday or Friday, talking about the previewing more of the Boilermakers. But with Bell in particular, 38 receptions, 679 yards, 4 touchdowns. He leads the conference in receiving yards per game at 135.8. He's played in 5 of the 6 contests there, which makes it even more impressive. He is also amongst the conference leaders in receptions and overall receiving yards heading into this week. The big game, he won Big Ten Player of the Week honors on Monday for his efforts in Iowa City this past weekend. 11 receptions, 240 yards, and a touchdown in that huge upset win that kind of shook the Big Ten West for now. And Wisconsin if Wisconsin wins out, they could head to Indianapolis. But right now with this team and what we've seen, that's obviously easier said than done. And there's a lot of work to do in that regard. But here's Caesar Williams. I had a chance to talk with him yesterday and Fionn Hicks about David Bell and the Purdue offense. But here's what Caesar Williams had to say about David Bell.
A dozen questions already about David Bell, but just what does make him so good right now? From a cornerback's perspective, what does he do that challenges not just you but other secondaries?
I think he does a great job. He's a playmaker. They're going to get him the ball as many times as they can throughout the game. I've seen games where he had almost 40 targets. So a guy that wants the ball that much, you got to find a way to take him out of the game. But I think he does a good job of making plays downfield. He's a good 50-50 guy downfield. So eliminating big plays downfield would be helpful for our team in order for us to come out of the game.
And then when it comes to, and obviously David Bell's going to be a big impact. Milton Wright, who had a big game actually in 2019 against Wisconsin, where he caught a 38-yard pass on a flea flicker from Purdue. And then on top of that, he threw a 37-yard touchdown pass to Bryson Hopkins that gave Purdue an early lead in the second quarter in that 2019 game. Wisconsin eventually won 45-24, but the Boilermakers gave a hint of a scare in that first half and whatnot. So flipping to the other side of the ball, though, you look at, of course, there's the big name, George Karlaftis, future NFL player. You can tell amazing standout lineman for Purdue in that defense, which is revamped from a season before too. They've impressed as well. This year, this is through 6 games right now, 22 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss. 3 sacks may not seem like a lot, but I'm guessing that a lot of teams are focusing in on him. And Jim Leonard talked about it. The defense coordinator for Wisconsin just talked about how, game plan, essentially offenses need to prepare for him and whatnot and try to focus in on him. 29 total pressures per Pro Football Focus heading into this game. So obviously he may not be getting home necessarily in terms of sacks, but that's a whole lot of pressures that Wisconsin's offensive line will have to take care of on Saturday afternoon in West Lafayette. But here is starting left tackle Tyler Beach talking about just what he has to prepare for with Karlaftis.
George Karlaftis, what stands out on film when you see him initially, and what you'll have to defend against him on Saturday?
I played him 2 years ago during the Rose Bowl year, and I think he's gotten a lot better since then. He's faster, stronger, smarter. He works inside guys. He works a long arm to the chest. He'll slap your hands if you're leaning, and then if you're oversetting him, he'll jump inside. So he's the type of guy that is on and consistent every play. He's not somebody that'll take a play off. And you got to be ready for every single move because he's always got something in his back pocket that he can use.
And within that, obviously that defensive line too is for Purdue will be quite, I think, a challenge for Wisconsin. And I think Purdue, outside of Iowa, maybe hasn't necessarily had quite, I think Wisconsin will have a chance to do some things against Purdue, but they're going to have to protect Graham Mertz and also make some yardage, obviously, and continue their rushing attack, the resurgence you've seen in the past 2 weeks against Illinois, against Army. And so that's going to be a key storyline going forward. But for this offense to move, they're going to need some passing game contributions that are more consistent. Paul Chris mentioned it after the game, talking about the passing game needing to be more consistent in that matter. So, but that also involves keeping Graham Mertz upright, and they're going to have quite the challenge against Karlaftis in that defensive line. So we're going to cut off from here, folks. Thank you guys for tuning in. Quickly, please subscribe to our YouTube page. It is free. You're going to see if you're on your mobile phone, click that thumbs up. There's a subscribe button right around there too. Hit that for us. Please follow us on Twitter at McNamara Rivals, me at Jake Coco, and then also our Badger Blitz at Badger_Blitz, and like us on Facebook. Search Wisconsin Badgers on BadgerBlitz.com. We'll be coming back later this week. We got a lot going on. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I have a lot of things going on with. I'm excited for it. We're gonna talk some recruiting. We're gonna have our first recruit on the show. And then also. We'll have game previews, highlighting Purdue, highlighting, what they bring to the table, and just our predictions heading into this weekend. So stay tuned, folks. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later this week on Badger Blitz TV, of course, a part of BadgerBlitz.com.